As soon as tomorrow, the Supreme Court could issue key rulings in the case of Donald Trump's presidential immunity claims and the charges facing many of the January 6th rioters. Leading Democrats have been calling for Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from those cases following recent reports about controversial flags flown at his homes. As the High Court is also considering several potentially landmark cases, Justice Sotomayor recently spoke out at Harvard University about the impact of some decisions she and her colleagues have had to make.
We did go backwards in Dobbs. I've said it's in my dissent, so I'm not saying something new, okay? We've taken away a right, and we've never done that in our history. Mind you, there are days that I've come to my office after an announcement of a case and closed my door and cried. There have been those days, and there are likely to be more.
Joining me now is Senate Judiciary Committee member, Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Senator Whitehouse, you've been a leader on this whole challenge to the court on its ethics, on the lack of recusals, Clarence Thomas, the benefits. Now, of course, the flags flying over Samuel Alito's homes. I was so struck by Justice Sotomayor to be that personal and to acknowledge that she has cried after some of the decisions and to say somewhat ominously to critics of the court that there will be more, likely more. What was your reaction to that?
Well, it's obviously very touching. She clearly takes the Dobbs decision very personally, which I think several 100 million Americans also do. But it sort of doesn't change the underlying problem here, that you have a majority on this court that doesn't care about precedent, that doesn't care about reliance on established rights, and that is doing an enormous amount of harm in what appears to be at the direction of a group of right-wing entities and billionaires who tell them what to do through front group amicus briefs. And the pattern of their decisions is really alarming. And I think that's part of what Justice Sotomayor was referring to expect more, that this is not random. This is not balls and strikes. There is a pattern here, and we can expect that pattern to continue.
What do you expect on the immunity decision?
Well, what I hoped was that it would be a quick 9-0, an opportunity for the court to say this is a ridiculous notion. We are all united. Nobody's above the law in this country, and that includes presidents. So that would be a pretty easy call. And the fact that they didn't go there creates, I think, very considerable nervousness among a lot of people about how MAGA this is getting. And when you've got one of the justices flying MAGA battle flags over his houses, and when you've got another whose spouse was actively participating in the January 6th insurrection and was a witness in the January 6th investigation, and neither is recusing themselves, it's really hard to see that the orderly course of justice is being honored here.
The court, of course, adopted an ethics code, so-called ethics code, in November, but there's no enforcement. So what can Congress do now?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's like a baseball team saying, okay, we're gonna play by the rules of baseball now, except for that bit about umpires. We're gonna call our own balls and strikes. We're gonna call ourselves safe on base. That's not an ethics code. That's not rules of baseball. You gotta have somebody who can make these decisions. Andrea, they do not even have fact finding. There are only 9 people in all of the United States government who, when there's a question about their ethics or their propriety, have no exposure to actual fact-finding. Even the president answered questions about the documents in his garage. But these 9 people reserve it to themselves alone to be subjected to 0 actual fact-finding, which is peculiar because it's the Supreme Court. They're supposed to defend process of law, and here they won't subject themselves to the most rudimentary process of law, fact-finding.
And Chief Justice declined the Judiciary Committee's request for a meeting. So do you have any options in the Senate?
Well, this has been a long and persistent effort, as you have said. I speak regularly to the Judicial Conference, which the Chief Justice chairs. We have constant correspondence. We've had a couple of victories from the Judicial Conference who've cleaned up things that were fairly significant messes related to the Supreme Court. And as you pointed out, they've moved from ethics is our problem, nobody bother us, to here's our ethics statement, to here's our ethics code, even though it's unenforceable. So we hope that there'll be continued progress at the court towards an actual enforceable ethics code with some real fact-finding, the way everybody else in government has to play by the rules.
And Senator McConnell spoke this morning accusing Democratic senators of unethical behavior for pressuring the court. So it's clearly not going to change. We're going to leave it there for now, but Senator, please come back. We've got some big decisions coming, and the next couple of weeks are going to be consequential. So good to see you.
Gladly.
Thank you.
Good to see you.